Hello everyone, Emma here. This is my first YouTube video. I was inspired to do this from spending a week at Rhythmia in Costa Rica, which is called Rhythmia is called a Life Advancement Centre. I spent 4 nights taking ayahuasca and connecting with some of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. I'm going to talk more about Rhythmia and my ayahuasca experience in a different video. But right now, I'm going to be speaking about my experience with an eating disorder, bulimia. Like I said, this is my first YouTube video. It is on my phone. So please, just understand that I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of speaking into a camera. There's not going to be any fancy editing or anything like that. This is going to be very raw and very authentic and me speaking really from my heart about my experience. My intention for this video is to help as many people as possible. And that's going to be the intention of all my videos, is to help people, to create a platform for people to express themselves honestly and from their heart and openly about their experience through life, whether that's from an eating disorder like I've suffered through, or depression, or anything like that, spiritual advancement, etc., etc. So I'm going to kind of jump straight into it. So from a young age, I was bullied quite severely just for being who I was. I was always a little bit different, stood up from the crowd. I never really followed the crowd very much. And I was singled out because of that, and I was bullied because of that. And it stuck with me. It really did stick with me for a long time. Some of the things that amongst some of the things that I was called was fat and ugly and useless, and I was just basically told on a daily basis how worthless I was, how unworthy I was. And this is all just from kids at school. I only got it in school. My home life was great, but at school it was just horrible. I really felt very isolated and very alone. I didn't really have many friends at that age of my life. And I'm trying to think how old I was when the bullying started. I can't really remember. I know that I was in junior school when I was going through some of it. When I went to senior school, it got worse. I remember one time, there were 2 boys in particular who used to pick on me, and they were chatting to a girl in the year above me who said that I was pretty. And they turned around and like, yeah, pretty damn ugly or something like that. It was just stuff like that. And I remember that really quite well. And it stuck with me. And gradually my confidence and my light that I had from such a young child gradually began to fade away. And I just became a shadow of myself. And I remember actually the first time that I made myself sick, I remember it really, really well. I was at a wedding. I was at a family friend's wedding. And I remember looking at the daughter of the woman who was getting married and comparing myself to her, and just thinking that she was just better than me in every single way. She was prettier, she was slimmer, she was popular, she could dance better than I could. Her hair was nicer, her face was nicer, everything about her was just amazing, and I was just really, really shit. And so I went to the toilets and I made myself sick. And I was 12 years old at the time. 12 years old, I was very young. And that basically started a downward spiral of eating, binging out, and then vomiting. And it quickly began to take control. I was really at the mercy of my emotions and my feelings. And, I used to, because I had very, really few friends, like food became my friend pretty quickly. And I would get so depressed that I would just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and then just make myself sick. And that was my coping mechanism. That was the way I coped with life. That was the way I dealt with my emotions. That was the way I coped with everything. When I was 13, my parents got divorced, and we moved. My mum and I moved from where I grew up, a place called Gosport in Hampshire. And I moved to a place called Chippenham in Wiltshire. And I started a new school. And so I was, at the time, not a very, very happy person at all, despite the fact that I'd been bulimic I mean, I started my new school when I think I must have been 14 or something. So I've been bullying for about 2 years by then. And my parents had just got divorced. It was a horrible time for me. And I was a shell of a person that I used to be. And I was, being a new person as well in the school. I was an easy target. So I was bullied then as well. And it's like the same type of stuff. You're so fat, you're so ugly, you're so worthless, you're so crap, etc., etc. So the bulimia intensified by quite a lot. I felt very, very alone. Again, I had very, very few friends. I certainly didn't speak about it at all. I didn't want anybody knowing. My mum had an idea it was happening, but I just used to deny it. And, there were countless times she'd take me to the doctors and I would just deny it. So, I mean, what could be done? I would just deny it. I didn't want anyone knowing. It was my own little secret. And because I didn't have any friends, my Friday nights would basically be, my mum would go shopping and I'd go shopping with her and I'd just buy loads of junk food and I'd sit and eat it and vomit it all up. And I think, mum bought it for me because it was just a comfort to me. I mean, I don't really, she must have been beside herself anyway, but I was just denying it. And I would have found a way to get the food anyway. I would have got it anyway. So that would be my Friday night. I wouldn't be out going out with any friends because I didn't have any. I was very alone. And I would just be being sick. So this obviously did nothing for my self-esteem whatsoever. I was very, very ill. I was very, very ill. Once I left school and started college, the bullying stopped. I did become a little bit happier. Kind of. I think as I got older, I became a little bit happier, but I was still very much in the grips of bulimia. Even when I got my first boyfriend at 16, we were together for 4 years, and he was a very, very lovely man. He was a bit older than me. He was a very, very lovely person. I still was very, very sick, and I would still binge and purge. And, looking back on it now, I never really considered myself as being depressed. But looking back on it now, I was very depressed. I was a very, very sad person. Obviously, I must have been to be doing that to myself, but it didn't really click at the time. It would just become a part of who I was, and and that was it. And it was like, if I felt emotional or felt, bad in any way, I could just turn to food. And it's not like I liked being sick. I hated doing it, but it was just a release or an escape. And because sometimes, well, a lot of the time, I would overeat and then I'd feel guilty, but then I always knew I could be sick. It was like, it was a backup. Like, I could eat all the crisps and all the cake and all the chocolate and all the crap in the world, but it didn't matter because I could vomit it up. And that was it, I could just vomit it up. So over the years, I did go for counselling. It didn't really do much for me. I remember going to one NHS session and she basically said to me that, she was a bit loath to go in a session with me because she was going to be leaving and there wasn't going to be a replacement for her. And, it might do more harm than good to have like a few sessions and then just leave me. And that was it. I think I had maybe 1 or 2 sessions with her and that was it. So that didn't really do any good at all. So there I was just left in this state of absolutely hating myself. I absolutely hated myself. Even though I wasn't being as bullied as much, and even though I had a nice boyfriend who loved me, really loved me. And for the first time in my life, I actually had friends around me, people who cared about me. I revealed my secrets a little bit to a chosen few who were just absolutely devastated that I was going through what I was going through and really wanted to help me. But I didn't want to be helped. I didn't want to be helped. I just carried on being sick, binging and purging and being sick. At some point during this, I became to be more interested in food and not just crisps and chocolate and crap like that. I became more interested in nutrition. And I mean, again, I can't remember how old I was. I mean, I always had bulimia for about 18 years. It was a long time. So actually, when things were happening within that time scale, like I can't really pinpoint exactly when it was. But anyway, at some point during that, I did become more interested in nutrition, and I'd have, a couple of weeks of periods of not being sick, where I would eat lots of, good, quite, plant foods, and because I was vegetarian as well. I went vegetarian at 8 years old. So I'd eat loads of plant foods and loads of fruits, and I started eating vegetables because I never ate vegetables when I was younger. My poor mum used to pull her hair out because I just literally live on spaghetti hoops and crap. But I started becoming more interested in nutrition, and I started buying books on nutrition and exercise and things like that. So there were periods of that time where the bulimia would relent, but because I hadn't actually dealt with myself emotionally, the symptoms would show their head again, and I would continue to binge and purge. So the cycle continued, and I really felt so very alone in it. No one can really understand what it's like until you go through it. And from an outsider's perspective, my boyfriend would just be like, "What the hell are you doing to yourself? Why are you doing this to yourself? Why?" And I just couldn't tell him. It would just come from a place of pure hatred. I'd been bullied for such a long time. I'd been made to feel so unworthy that I just hated myself. And when you're a child, you're so innocent and your soul is so pure, and you're so full of love and joy. And when you go through bullying, as I'm sure most of you who have been bullied can relate to, it just strips away that innocence and that joy until you're just left as a shell. You're just left as a shell, and it's just so easy for these things, for mental health issues, just to worm their way in, and especially if you've been told how unworthy and worthless you are, and how no one likes you, and how ugly and how fat you are all the time. You just believe it. And even now I struggle. Even now, even though I'm 34 now, and even I do know that I'm not fat and I'm not ugly, and I really despise the word ugly. I think it's just horrific. And even if I was fat, that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you should be bullied and picked on for the way you look. It's horrible, but I struggle with it even now, and I'm constantly checking myself in the mirror to make sure that I look okay. And that's something that I'm still struggling with, and something that I really want to get over, because I don't like being that way. I don't like being a slave to the mirror, essentially, or being afraid that people are judging me for how I look. I still have that fear. I'm still scared that people thinking that I'm ugly, even though I know that it's not. No one's ugly, really. It's just the only thing that's ugly is what is inside of someone and their outward projections. That's the thing that's ugly, not a face. So when I was around 18 or 19, I started on a more spiritual path. I started to realise that everything is connected, that everything is one. And even though I was still ill, and I was still continued to be ill until I was about 28, my spirituality did bring me comfort. It did bring me comfort. And as I progressed through my 20s, my spirituality grew. Even though it was quite an odd time, actually, because even though I knew there was more to life and more to what I was experiencing, I still had such a deep hatred for myself that I couldn't shake. And even when I started to meditate and started to go inward more, I would still binge and purge. I have to say that it got better. In my kind of later 20s, it certainly got better. I think as my self-love grew, it got better. And And, you know, people ask me, how did you stop? How did you stop being sick? And the truth is that I just started to love myself more. Through those years of intensive hatred of my own being, I somehow managed to grab onto the one little chink of light left inside of me, and I made that light grow. Somehow, I don't really know how it happened, but I think I just decided that I love myself more than I loved being sick. I hated being sick. I hated it. I hated binging and purging. You know, you know, when I look back and think about what I'd done to myself, it hurts. You know, and actually, you know, I don't regret it, because I had to go through what I went through to be who I am now, and actually I like who I am now. You know, at the grand old age of 34, I actually accept who I am. And, you know, this has been a long path of acceptance, and I haven't made myself sick for a long time. I think I probably healed myself from bulimia at the age of 28 or 29. And that is literally because I just decided to stop, you know, and it really is that simple. And I know that some people who have an eating disorder might go, actually, you know, it's not that fucking simple. I've been doing this for years and years and years, and I can't stop. You know, I'm not trying to take away from that experience. I know that it's, you know, in some ways it's not that easy, because you're just in such a grip of an eating disorder that stopping is just so scary, because this eating disorder is your life. It's your life. But actually, you know, I just decided that I was more worthy than what I had been led to believe. And what I was doing was not in alignment with worthiness at all. It was the complete opposite. So it really was just a decision that I'd made to love myself more and just to make this stop. And, you know, I have had a few slip-ups. There have been times when emotions have got the better of me, and I have made myself sick. But I'm happy to say that's been, you know, maybe 10 times since I was 28. So in 6 years. So something like that. You know, and like I said, my intention for this video is to help people who may be going through the same thing, or to maybe you know someone who's suffering from an eating disorder, and maybe this can give you a bit of insight into why they're doing what they're doing. You know, it's a mental health issue, and once your being has been knocked to a place where you hate yourself, this type of thing manifests. It just does, you know. And it's like any type of condition, like cutting yourself, or anything that you can do, you know, anything that where you end up hurting yourself physically. It's all related. It's all related, you know. But you know, some people choose to cut themselves, or you know, and some people choose to take really hard drugs, and you know, and I chose to make myself sick. And I actually remember at the point of the peak of my illness, when I was really, really sick, I used to wish so much that I could starve myself. I used to be like, right, okay, that's it. I'm not going to be sick anymore. I'm going to be strong enough to be anorexic. That was my mentality. And I'd get to about midday, and you know, I'd get up in the morning and be like, right, yeah, this is it. I'm going to starve myself. I'm strong. I know I can do this. I'd get to about midday, and I would obviously not do it. I'd start eating crisps and stuff like that, or whatever I could eat. And I would beat myself up so much. I'd be like, you're so weak. Why can't you starve yourself? What's wrong with you? You know, and I was so young. I was so young when I was putting myself through this. You know, and I just want to take my younger self and give her a hug. You know, I want to take that 12-year-old me and give her a massive hug, and just let her know that it's all okay, and that it's okay to be who you are, because that was one of the main things. I was just so scared of being who I was, because I was bullied for that. You know, not only was I called fat and ugly, I was also a bit weird. You know, like I said, I never really followed a crowd. I always did my own thing. And I was picked on for that. And I really hid myself. I hid who I really was. And it's taken a long time for me to reconnect to who I really am. A long time, and actually be okay with who I am. And, you know, I'm going to go into this in greater detail in another video. But when I was taking the ayahuasca at Rhythmia, I really forgave myself. I forgave myself for putting myself through this. And I became in touch with who I really was, like in a really, really deep level. And I realised that it's okay to be who I am. It's okay to be me. And I want you to know that as well. Whoever you are watching this, whether you have an eating disorder, whether you have any type of mental health condition, whether you're cutting yourself, or whether you are an observer of someone going through this, it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to be you. It's okay to be scared, because life can be fucking scary. There's no doubt about that. You know, I am going to do other videos about this. You know, the intentions for my channel are to speak very, very frankly and very authentically and very from my heart about my experiences in life, experiences in many different experiences, basically. And I welcome people's questions, and I welcome people to talk about how they're feeling, because I think it's so important. And I want to create a community of people that can be honest with themselves and honest with other people. You know, we need each other. We can't do this on our own. We need each other. So that's it for now. You know, please comment on this. You know, if you'd like me to go into more detail about my experience, I will probably do that actually anyway. Please share this video. Please share it with anyone that you think might want to see it or might need to see it. You know, and know that you are worthy. You are worthy of, you know, as you are right now. You are worthy of being who you are. You deserve the best in your life. You deserve the best. And I just want to send you all so much love. You know, I love you. I love who you are. You are worthy now. You are loved now. Okay. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching my first video. As my videos progress, I'm going to make them, probably edit them, and, you know, and I'm going to develop my content. But as for now, this is my first video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching and for your attention. I love you all. Bye-bye.